Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Now, today's gonna be a little bit of a different video. Every single time I go to a con, have a panel, or just have some kind of public gathering, I always get asked all these questions about my life in Japan. What my personal experiences were like. Well, like, what was it like teaching in Japanese high school? What was it like living in Japan? What was it like living out in the countryside? And this happens so often, and I get asked the same question so many times. I thought, maybe it might be a good idea to just chronicle some of them, have them up for everyone to see, because I know not everyone can go to all these different conventions that I go to. And you know, in the past, I did something similar. I don't know if it's on YouTube anymore, I can't remember if I took it down or not. But long before I was Gaijin Goombah, I actually did a series while I was in Japan called Gaijin Review. And it was basically what it was like to be a foreigner in Japan while living in Japan and having the daily experiences. Like, I did the video talking about going to the hospital and what that adventure was like, and that was a very different experience from what I'm used to here. And let me just say, if you think my content is cringy and poor quality now, I do not invite you to go see that. But if it exists and you want to torture yourself, I'd say go for it. I just wanted to maybe do something a little bit simple, and maybe once a month do something like this. Just tell another story about me in Japan and kind of get away from the online persona a little bit and just talk to you guys as just regular old me. So no guys, you were not clickbaited into watching this video. I actually did live next to a Yakuza house back when I was teaching abroad in Japan. Now, it wasn't a really big one. Like, we're not talking like Yamaguchi-gumi sized, like, giant house. It was a pretty moderate one. I mean, I lived out in the countryside predominantly. I lived out in the Inaka, so it was going to be of moderate size. But the crazy thing is that I passed it almost every single day. If you took the train station and looked a little bit to your right and back somewhat, like, it's literally right there, there was a Yakuza house, and you couldn't tell from the outside, but yeah, a lot of the teachers warned me about it. They're like, don't go over there, don't mess with anything, don't do anything. And I had the same thoughts that I'm sure a lot of you guys do. It's like, oh crap, well, I'm gonna get robbed, I'm gonna get mugged, I'm gonna get murdered, It feels like a really, really bad situation to be in, especially because it's right next to the station. That seems like it would be a really rough time, right? Well, it turns out all they did was work on their cars. Yeah, every single time I was there, it's like I would be walking past, just like either going to Yokkaichi, which was the nearby city, or another one of my schools, something like that. They would just be out there working on the cars. Sometimes I would assume their girlfriends were out there, like, helping them, but they were always out there, just half head, like, deep under their hood, working on cars. And I'm like, what do these guys do? My job in Japan was twofold. It was one, to teach English, and it was also to be a grassroots diplomat, aka I go around and talk to people and explain, hey, foreigners really aren't so hard to work with, we're not so hard to talk to, we're not scary. Although some of us were, some of us Gaijin smashed a little bit, and I suppose that's going to be a topic for another video, like, months down the road. But I didn't interact with these guys because, I mean, one, you don't want to interact with the Yakuza too much. But on the second part, it's like, am I really gonna grassroots diplomat these guys of all people? So no, that wasn't gonna happen. But I tell you what, the longer I lived there, the less I really thought about it, and the less it ever became a concern. It just didn't matter. I mean, every single day, hundreds of people would walk by this house. And since this was like a really sleepy countryside town, we had an influx of two commodities, old people and children. And those are the two ripe ages to take advantage of, right? It's like, if you're a kid, it's like, you're gonna get shaken down for your money. If you're elderly, you're probably gonna get shaken down for your money. And it was the weirdest thing too, because there was actually a clockmaker who had a mom and pop shop literally across the street from this place, and I never saw anything going down with them. And it was just weird because we're talking hundreds of kids going by this place, tons of elderly going by this place, nothing happens. It felt like the weirdest thing. That's when it really started to hit me, is that the Yakuza they're not thugs. Not in the traditional sense. And don't get me wrong, I've studied these guys. I studied these guys a lot when I was in college and whatnot, but I think it was when I first really started to, like, not interact with them, just being in the close proximity, that it was starting to finally click. And it just made me really think a whole lot, because they're not thugs, they're more like chaotic, neutral businessmen, if that makes any sense. The Yakuza are definitely a business-oriented group of individuals. And, you know, what good is business going to be if you're shaking down everyone that, you know, you could possibly get good business from? And that's what they're all about. But above all else, unlike a lot of other gangs and whatnot that have a lot of loose rules, the Yakuza have a very, very specific relationship with each other. And that's the Oyabun-Kobun relationship. And you've got the Oyabun, who is the father figure. You've got the Kobun, who is the child figure, I guess you could put it. And the way that it worked is that the Kobun swore complete and total loyalty. Like, even to a point of taking the fall and possibly going to jail for their Oyabun. And in exchange, the Oyabun would basically kind of care for this person. They would look out for them as much as they could. There was a familial relationship going on between these individuals. And by and large, the Yakuza was basically just a place where outsiders could come together and basically find some kind of family. Granted, it's, you know, still organized crime, but it was still a family. Now, are they angels? Not really. They're not really the Robin Hood that I'm sure a lot of them want to be known as. I mean, they still drug traffic, they still have prostitution, they still do illegal gamblings, and sometimes they have protection rackets, and that kind of sucks. And I know that sounds kind of strange, because it's like, Gaijin, are you actually being sympathetic towards criminals? And it's like, maybe a little. Because something you have to understand is that the Yakuza are predominantly made up of the outcasts, and there's a lot of different outcasts in Japan. And when it comes to that country, if you're not a part of the group, if you're not a part of the collective, and if you don't conform to everything that they are, you get shunned. And you get shunned basically from work. Like, you're done. Your life is kind of meaningless. Boy, didn't I say in the very beginning of this video how I was actually going to not be super analytical and historical and just get to my life story? Okay, sorry. Let me get back to the life experiences. There were a couple of instances where I did interact with them very, very briefly. Because you don't want to make it any more than just being brief. And the first of which actually comes from this thing right here. This, if you don't know who this character is, this is Anpanman. He's like a really, really popular children's character. Google him, it's a really weird story. He gives pieces of his head to starving people. It's a weird story. But anyway, every year our little town has their local matsuri, like their local festival. And there's always vendors. And what was interesting is that a lot of these vendors were right next to the Yakuza house. So I was a little worried about going down there and whatnot, but I was like, whatever, everyone's out here, everyone's having a good time, it's not going to be a big deal. So I saw this hanging up in a stall, and there's usually a stall that has just like a ton of masks on there, and you just go and you buy them. So I was like, I picked it off, I'm holding it, and I go up to the guy, and I say, okay, how much is it? And he just turns to me with like this really gruff look in his eye, and he's like, 1,000 yen. And I'm like, really?
Okay, yeah, this mask right here, $10. Yeah, kind of a total waste, but hey, you know what? It's a Matsuri. I'm gonna enjoy myself, whatever.
I mean, it's a cool mask and whatnot, and yeah, you want a mask during a Matsuri because you gotta do the whole like put it on the side of your head kind of thing, whatever. God, if I didn't just break it. I had it in my hand, and this dude was looking like he looked really gruff, and I'm like, all right, here you go, because I just want to be done with it, because the air was so thick and so hostile. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm not gonna make this guy mad. And that's actually an example of a tekiya street vendor, which is another possible origin of where a lot of the Yakuza come from. And these are just street peddlers, but unlike most of them, they're snake oil salesmen. They don't necessarily break the law in the way that they sell their stuff. It's that they manipulate people, like that guy manipulated me. It's either like very much intimidation, or they pretend to be drunk and to be more sympathetic. It's putting people in a position of, well, I put myself in this, I've got myself into this mess, I might as well just pay the money and be gone, so I don't have to, you know, there's not a fight or anything like that. So again, nothing that they do is necessarily illegal, but boy, do they know how to convince you to buy stuff. Then there was another instance where there was another vendor that I thought, maybe this guy's kind of on the up and up. And the thing is that at Matsuris, there's lots of little gambling stalls. The most simple of which is they have a whole lot of prizes lined along the wall, and they all have numbers. So you go in, you pay like 300 yen, which is like $3, and you're like, okay, what do I win? They give you a little slip of paper and it has a number on it. And so they've got big things up there like granted, this was like 8 years ago, so like PS3s and whatnot, like big stuff. And I pulled like a 5, and I won this. I'm not even kidding, I won this. I asked them what the heck this is, and they said, oh, it's a mother annoyer. Like, the word was a thing that annoys one's parents, but particularly mother. So yeah, I could see how that would be actually really annoying. So the other occurrence of me interacting with the Yakuza, even though it was just a very quick, brief thing, I had to go out pretty late at night to this bar in order to catch up with some friends because we were going to hang out and whatnot. The problem with that plan, though, is that I had to cut through the red light district in Yokkaichi being the nearby city where I lived. And, yeah, that's prime location for a Yakuza control. So I tried to do the smart thing and just put on headphones and just kind of hunch over and just kind of look at the ground and just kind of move on and just not bug anyone. When, I ran into a gentleman in front of a door because I had to take a hard left because this was a really dense shopping center that was tied to the red light district, and he was really well dressed. It was a snappy guy. He was clean cut, but he was also very big and very intimidating. And I wouldn't dare go to look at his hands because you know what I'm talking about. He did two things that I did not expect. The first of which is that he gestured me to come in to his establishment. I think it was a pink salon. Now, for those of you that don't know what a pink salon is, it's kind of like a bar with like a really bad cock tease that can get elevated to certain things, but it's really expensive, so you just don't want to waste your money on there. Yeah, and so he gestured me in, and I'm like, okay, go this. I'm okay, I'm fine. So I just kind of went on my way, and then he didn't follow me. Now there's a couple of big reasons why that was such a big deal to me, and the fact that this guy was, if he wasn't Yakuza, he was associated with some other underground group, but I was pretty sure it was Yakuza considering it's a door guy and he's looking really nice in a suit. Reason number one, when it comes to these kinds of facilities, foreigners are not allowed. Like, I was Gaijin and he let me come in. I'm not talking about my name, I'm talking about the social status. I was a foreigner. Foreigners never get invited to these things, like, not usually, mostly because it's like, well, they don't know how our rules work, they're gonna abuse the girls, etc. And no, this guy was like, dozo, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. But I mean, no, like, these particular services are like $300 for like a half hour, and I got better things to spend my money on, plus I also had a girlfriend at home, and but I think that's when I started to realize that the Yakuza weren't this big, angry, like, beat you up, mug you, kill you organization that a lot of us perceive it to be. There's no regular brawling, guys. This is not at all like the Yakuza games. I mean, story-wise, kinda. The Oyabun Kobun relationship is there, but no one's gonna be coming up to you like with a giant with like a motorcycle and just beating you senseless with it. It doesn't happen. In fact, the only times that I've ever heard any primary sources talking about like violence like that just involve the Yakuza, it's with other Yakuza. And the reason for that is because you gotta understand, guys, Japan is the size of California and has the population density of like a quarter of the United States. Don't quote me on those numbers, I'm just coming up with what I remember in my head. But because of that, Japan is super cramped. Anyone that has ever been to Japan knows how utterly packed everything is together. And not only that, everything is built from like the ground up, not like side to side like it is in the States and like other countries where there's more room. There's not that room. And so because of that, not only is it hard to acquire territory for like a Yakuza organization, it's even harder to hold on to it. There's gonna be gang violence all over the place, but it's only within the gang. And that's something that's what I was starting to slowly realize. I mean, Yokkaichi was a decent-sized city, but I mean, if you've got multiple gang organizations trying to jockey for positions, because like trying to get your pachinko parlors up and your pink salons up and your soap lands up, don't Google those. But I mean, it would be really difficult, and territorial fighting is super fierce. So yeah, like, I mean, that's when the brawls happen, that's when the knives come out, that's when the guns come out. So don't involve yourself with the Yakuza and they're not gonna pay any attention to you. In fact, they're probably going to be less than interested in you, especially if you're a foreigner. Because what good are you gonna be for them? They're businessmen. Violence and shakedowns create chaos. And in a society like Japan, that's the last thing that you want. To a point where it's like, the shattering of harmony is such a taboo, such a bad, terrible thing to do within that particular society. The Yakuza don't even do it. They never come up and just like do really direct threats. Everything is kind of backhanded. Like when it comes to company takeovers, which is, or like I guess business bullying, for lack of a better way to put it, it's always really discreet. It's never straightforward and aggressive. The Yakuza are so careful about this because of what it does to their public image. In fact, public face for the Yakuza is so important that they've actually been some first responders before any of the national aid agencies would come and help people. During the March 11th earthquake, which I was in Japan at that time, in Tohoku, where it all went down, they were some of the first people out there with like bread and perishables and rice and water and things like that. And yeah, the public were really happy to have that, but at the same time it's like, okay, well, what's your angle at? And they're saying, no, it's no angle, it's just we're out here helping people. And to their credit, they didn't really ask for anything back. On the flip side though, probably not the same Yakuza group, but probably, I believe another individual organization would actually, like when the whole Fukushima Daiichi event came out and there was all of the dangers of radiation seeping out into the ocean and into the country and whatnot, there were a couple of organizations that rounded up some debtors, people who owed them a lot of money from their illegal gambling, and basically had them take on really dangerous jobs cleaning up the area. And they would actually, like the bosses would actually take a big chunk of what they made and only give them a small part back. And it was a big deal a couple years later. So it's really weird because a lot of people aren't sure if Japan would be better off without them or with them, because they have such a weird symbiotic relationship, and you would not expect that from a crime organization. It would be, you would think it to be a more parasitic one, right? But it's just the weirdest thing. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when you're an outsider in Japan, you automatically lose. You are automatically designated sometimes not Japanese, sometimes not even human. And the system in Japan beats you down more, in my opinion, more than almost any other society. And they beat you down not because of race or gender or anything like that. It's just your family history. So the only way for it seems like the only way for some of these people in order to get by within the system is to cheat it. If they have no ability in regular everyday life to earn a good living, to make money, to support their families, to support themselves, a lot of them just feel like they have no choice, and then they end up working with gangs because gotta make your money somehow, I guess. And it's a really sad way of looking at it, but it's honestly true. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this video. I'm gonna go right back to working on those Kirby videos. Gotta work on that Witch Ninja and working on that Culture Shock. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun recording this. I know it was a really long video, but I had so much fun doing this. And I really hope you guys like that story. Let me know what you think in the comment section too, guys. I would love to continue this maybe once a month or every other month. Just something to take a break and just be more of me to you. So anyway, guys, until next time, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.